Maintain a useful and professional web presence. In the early days of the internet, when manufacturers first began putting sites up for everything from steak sauce to shampoo, there were a great many websites that seemed to just occupy virtual space. To this day, some companies that most need sites don't have them, while every little facet of the recent Coke or Pepsi ad campaign has its own site. As a business that has a mission that is inherently part educational, you have a great deal of information to convey. It's a lot easier to give someone a card with your web address on it than to explain your company's mission and ecological innovations in any detail. Now that you've become a good corporate citizen, you get to show off any way you can. Local reviewers and reporters will probably go to the internet first to learn more about your company. It is always a good idea to make it easy for people to find you. In fact, looking things up online has become so routine for most people that it is very common for that to be the first place many turn to for information about products and services. That said, don't rush to put just any old website up. Don't pay your 8-year-old nephew a pittance to do it. What might have seemed a frivolous vanity project even just a few years ago has become very serious. You need a site that looks professional and gives the requisite information quickly and easily. You might even want to build it yourself if you're good at that sort of thing, but only if you have the right tools to do the job. Do not, under any circumstance, use a MySpace page or some other free site. It doesn't cost hardly anything to buy a domain and use a host server. You won't look real otherwise. You also don't need to spend a small fortune on a top-notch site until you've made it. If you are a bona fide success, you can expect to get someone to build a good site for you for a few $1,000s with emphasis on the word good. Fundamental business shifts. You've done it. Saved some money, made your employees happy, and set yourself on the path to remaking yourself in an environmental niche. Now is the time to take all of that preparation and make the fundamental shifts that will set the stage for your marketing. Refocusing your product line or services into the environmental sector. You perhaps wouldn't have started on this path if you didn't already have an idea about how you wanted to go about refocusing your business. It might be as simple as changing your marketing campaigns. We'll talk about that in Chapter 3. Or as complicated as coming up with entirely new products or services. If your changes are in the marketing area, educating your sales force might be the most fundamental shift you'll need to make. On the other hand, most businesses will benefit from a change in how the products and services are approached. For example, let's say you've been a conventional veterinarian for many years. Now that you've decided to become an eco-friendly company that gives your customer sustainable options, you'll want to explore many different avenues. Some things you might change include offering sustainably produced specialty pet food and products, natural nutritional counseling, cage-free animal boarding, physical rehabilitation services and pet massage instead of drugs, homeopathic remedies, pet wellness counseling, changing vaccine suppliers, offering non-chemical alternatives to parasite control. From this short list, you can see your options are wide open. The level of commitment is up to you and the size of the potential market you choose in relation to the size of your business. Your new customers will probably want to see a full line of alternatives, so you may want to have a majority of your changes in place before you begin the marketing campaign. It is useful for many businesses making such a transition to seriously consider keeping part of their old product line. Vegetarian-only restaurants may have a hard time getting meat eaters to visit, even with their vegetarian friends. On the other hand, if you're selling something that does very specifically cater to the hardcore greenies, such as a dibble to make seedling pots out of paper, they might be offended or at least pester you about it. You'll have to decide how focused your audience will be with the changes you've chosen and to what extent you're willing to cater to them at the expense of a wider clientele. As you transition to the new goods and services, you want to make sure that the process is as smooth as possible for yourself and your staff. Keeping everyone informed of your plans and the changes that are ahead will help a lot. Telling them why and having the idea straight in your own head will help a great deal more. Be sure you have the capital on hand if there are likely to be added expenses in making the shift. Going out on a limb and expecting the business credit card to handle it can end in heartbreak. you'd better find out for sure by running some numbers before you jump in. It is always best to find a way to make the changes by reinvesting profits into the business or make them in such a way so that you don't have to spend any extra money at all. If you do need to secure some sort of loan to make this happen, give yourself some time to find one with a decent rate and terms that fit your needs. For those just starting out, you don't have to worry about your existing customers or getting rid of old stock. You do, however, have to choose carefully. There are so many options out there. Not all boutique-type items are ecologically friendly, and not all ecologically friendly options are fashionable. The gulf between these two extremes is wide indeed. Foregoing traditional marketing strategies for low-impact alternatives. One great way to save some money is to try novel forms of marketing. This doesn't mean you necessarily want to get rid of the telephone directory ad, but you might very well want to consider it. You certainly want to change it. What you definitely want to do is carefully consider the benefits you get from traditional ad space, such as the directory, but also billboards, newspaper, magazine, and online banner ads. Each has its own merits that are best suited to certain types of enterprises. Many of the highest quality purveyors of goods and services rely on little more than word of mouth, but do a very good job of establishing a relationship with their customers in an effort to encourage word of mouth advertising. If you're really that good, this can free up a whole lot of capital to invest in quality materials and time. This is especially useful if your business decides to focus on a local audience. Even companies with a much wider range of focus can benefit by tailoring their campaigns to local markets wherever they have a foothold and a local presence. Non-traditional types of marketing have been making very serious successes in recent years. Entire books have been written on the subject, but suffice it to say there are options available to you, other than the obvious, that cost you little if anything to try. By virtue of being new, startups can take advantage of local press to review and hopefully recommend their offerings. It never hurts to find out if there is any media interest in your business as a destination or point of interest of some sort. Many businesses are now using Google AdWords to use the pay-per-click method of advertising. While this has made a real industry of writing keyword content that generates such traffic, you might want to consider how much you're willing to bank on a website that garners traffic. If your business is local, this won't be of much interest to you since you're not selling things through the mail. However, if you are, this can be invaluable since so many people get their information online. If not, making yourself known to people who are providing web-based recommendations and reviews is very useful to a local business or service. In the online realm, almost anything that gets people to your site is useful. A small investment in content can help you come up in web searches as long as you have a website you can update with regularity. Giving interviews can be very useful, but you want to make sure there are links to your company's site included in any such write-up. Coming up with something that other people will write about makes it that much easier to get the word out. Holding regular events of some sort are especially useful in getting on the radar of news sites and current events calendars. Don't be adverse to dropping your company website anywhere it might be picked up online. As for low-impact marketing, online advertising consumes few resources in comparison to printing up flyers or getting a listing in a printed publication. Many of them now cater to green businesses or are printed in such a way to be more environmentally friendly. If you must print up flyers, do it on recycled paper. If you're going to send out postcards, have them printed with an eco-friendly printer. Consider ways of distributing your materials that don't involve long-distance transport and minimize waste. Global or national emphasis versus local and regional marketing. There are a great many reasons for a business to focus on local markets, many of which have to do with the consumption inherent in cross-country transport. Relying upon nationwide or worldwide cheap transport also means that you'll have to make some concessions that keep your product from being unique. Simply not being able to rely upon the mellow feeling an increasing number of people are having towards the home team can be huge in terms of trying to break out into a new market. If you already have such shipping channels of your own established, you might as well utilize them. But by the same token, you might want to consider narrowing down your focus to really reach the sort of niche market you're looking to, not just to occupy but fill completely. Unless the product you're peddling is so unique that your potential market is only a few thousand people worldwide, such as the total number of people who collect barbed wire or are members of the Stephen Buscemi fan club. Anyhow, being the only game in town is where the most efficient use of niche marketing really is. You in relation to the competition. Before you embark on your new marketing campaign, you'll want to check the competition, if for no other reason than to find out if there is any. By getting a good idea of others' strengths and weaknesses, you'll be able to get a feel for what works and what doesn't. Don't just take their word for it, though getting a feel for what their campaigns are like can be incredibly useful. You're looking for an angle, a niche that hasn't been filled yet. Let your competitors give you ideas about where to go with this bold new venture of yours. Assessing your competitor's stance. Is your main competition just as committed to sustainable business practices as you are? Are they currently marketing themselves as such? How can you take advantage of your company's principles to differentiate yourself from them? Before you enter any market, you need to evaluate your place in it. If there are already 12 companies in your small city that cater to expectant and new mothers who are interested in locally prepared organic baby food, is there anything that makes yours different and somehow better than just getting it to the grocery store? Find out. Being the only one in your neighborhood or the only one that makes deliveries might be enough to capitalize on a large enough section of the market that you can make some inroads to becoming the brand on the supermarket shelf, if that's what you want. If you have reason to believe that your competition is taking advantage of people by misrepresenting themselves, you can take advantage of that by very carefully letting the truth be known, as long as you're sure it's demonstrably the truth. This is one instance where alerting the media might be useful, but only if you're in a position to take all of the business that might come your way. Local consumer reporters are very often looking for juicy story ideas. Of course, this only works if your closet can stand the light of day. When you did your own market research, you found out what percentage of sales in your sector were made from local companies. As such, you know how widely your competition is scattered. Your analysis of the competition must include all of it. Missing an up-and-coming trend among your market demographic can be the difference between success and failure if you're in a competitive market. If you find you're the only game in town, you have the luxury of defining and completely filling the niche you seek and making the best use of your available resources. Some companies will have the advantage of being the only green alternative in a segment. This allows you to make a more effective use of marketing what's uniquely ecologically friendly about you. There may be plenty of companies in town that are putting up gutters, but yours are the only ones made from recycled materials. That's useful and saves you a lot of discussion as to why yours is better. Making claims about you versus them. If you're not the only game in town, you will find yourself being compared to the competition whether you bring it up or not. If your product is demonstrably better than theirs, demonstrating its superiority is all you need to being that contrast in focus. It just becomes a matter of getting people to sample your wares. If the differences are more subtle, then you'll have to be careful not to slander anyone else, lest you start a feud or worse. If the competition does a very good job of filling your niche, you might want to consider what else about your business makes you green or great. It's not very often outside the cola wars that you even need to mention the competition. If you feel it's necessary, sometimes just giving the merest hint of the other company, such as portraying unnamed competition in their colors, is enough to give potential customers a pretty good conscious or subconscious idea about who you're talking about. Following a trailblazer's example. Modern communications allow anyone with a connection and some time to learn how others have made their way in your field. If there's a clear path to success, by all means follow it. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, as they say. Even if you're the first company in Baltimore to offer bamboo flooring, find out what worked in San Francisco before starting out from scratch. If the leading competition is way ahead in the marketplace and has a hold on the market you're in, be sure there's a reason for somebody to buy locally. Otherwise, there will have to be something quite a bit better or different about your product. Since the big guys can take advantage of mass production in ways that you simply can't, you'll never be able to compete on price alone. Leading the way. Congratulations. You are one of the very few people to do something entirely new. This doesn't happen very often, but has the advantage of unlimited opportunity as long as it's a good idea. Some ideas are not good, and you'll want to be carefully assessing them before jumping in, especially if you don't find any examples of anyone else doing this. Just because you think bagpipe door chimes are the best idea ever doesn't mean that anyone else is likely to agree with you. If you've been told that you have odd tastes, double-check your ideas with as many willing test subjects as you can find, but do so in a manner that'll give you honest answers. Chapter 3. Marketing your brand of green. You've done it. You've made the switch to a more ecologically sound way of doing things. Now it's time to let the world know you're here to help. Identifying your audience. First, you're going to have to know who to talk to in order to get your message across clearly and efficiently. Knowing who your customers are allows you to make an educated guess as to what is likely to motivate them. You should use this information to tailor every aspect of your marketing to the people you want to impress. While some of your potential new customers are part of large demographic groups, others are not, and may even be the niche you're looking for. Having identified who your potential audience is, Braden and Roth 246, you'll want to find a few things out about them. The first step is to consider their demographics. What might you find out about them on a census report? More subjective and speculative are the psychological characteristics that the demographic tends to display. These observations don't apply to any one individual, but to a theoretical average customer, so consider it in a general guide. The dedicated greens. Some people call themselves hippies or the crunchy folk. They may be new or old, but they definitely know to tar the washed-out yogurt container before putting mung beans in it. They willingly eat things like vegan barley loaf as comfort food. They seal business deals with hugs. While some people who claim to be arbiters of fashion hold them in contempt, we wouldn't have much of a green movement today if it weren't for these stalworthy, eco-conscious consumers. In short, your traditional green consumer has been doing this a long while, and ecology is in the forefront of their minds much of the time. It is very likely they make their purchasing decisions with thermodynamics in mind, whether they know it as such. They are also perhaps more apt to be self-educated than most. They also tend to be a rather handy lot, so things that are packaged and processed may not do as well in this segment. However, products that allow people to do things for themselves are well suited to this demographic. That's not to say that they don't like gifts or won't hire a fine craftsperson to do work they can't, but if you're open to barter, they probably are too. They do not all follow FISH, the group, make soap, go barefoot, worship the sun, drive microbuses, consult their astrological charts, or even eat tofu. You may not even be able to spot or smell them in a crowd. However, should you figure out a way to make healthy vegan marshmallows, they'll beat a path to your door. The gender gap. While you certainly can't count on women to be kinder and gentler, it would seem that they see themselves that way. Women are thought to be at least twice as likely to be interested in making green purchases than their male counterparts. It is thought that this is a result of having children and households to take care of. It may simply be that they like to think of themselves as the sort of people that care. The latter is data that's mighty hard to come by, but they both seem plausible if the statistics are to be believed. If true, this segment is interested in value and safety as well as convenience. Think about any mother of young children you know and consider what her priorities are. While ecology is all well and good, of immediate concern are the health and well-being of the household and simple ways that allow a purchase decision to be the extent of the commitment. They want to set a good example for the little ones, but not at the expense of their college funds. As such, it's good to do whatever you can to remain as competitively priced as possible for this segment of the market. It's very likely that the average woman that makes green purchases works outside the home, has a family or household, and holds at least a bachelor's degree. Claims about the safety of a product had better be backed up with some facts because they'll check. This demographic tends to stick with purchase decisions unless convinced otherwise, but are not beyond responding to interesting and new packaging. They are very likely to also make essential item purchases for their partners. The same highly wrought products and basic services that the dedicated green above might shun have an audience here. These women would love to have time to make soap or bath salts or hummus from scratch, but until something gives, there is just enough time for hummus mix or takeout/deli food. They are likely to give themselves treats, so gift-type items and non-essential services would do well to consider the feminine marketplace. Affluent households. Even if ecologically friendly products and services are priced to be affordable these days, there is still a premium associated with such goods. There has been a shift in recent years from quantity to quality, though no shift is needed for this demographic. That's always been their way. There is quite a range of affluence covered here. The demographic does tend to have at least one household member with an advanced degree. Quality and novelty motivate their purchases, as does convenience. Their time is precious, and they approach physical labor like tourists, if ever. When you have the money to buy many of the consumer goods you want, unique and new things appeal, as does anything that is handmade for them personally. Since the personal touch is one of the trademarks of localism, this market might be very well suited to your business. Let's say you want to make organic cotton clothing for women. Your dream of bringing bloomers back might not fly in this often socially conservative crowd. All bets are off in Los Angeles, by the way. However, if you make a very comfortable and slick-looking pair of pants that come in a variety of tasteful and natural dyed colors, you'd be on the right track for this audience. Add to that a service by which you go to their location, take measurements, and deliver their handmade pants a week later, and you might have a hit. Get a few of the influential people who others want to have lunch with to wear them, and get ready to do a lot of sewing. The same service-added approach can work for anything. These folks don't want to buy carrots. They want a personal chef to have their meals made and ready with organic carrots. The merely affluent may very well be moved by environmental appeals, though they probably won't have much time to talk to you to find out more. If very rich, they may be interested in environmentally conscious causes because it's the fashionable thing to do these days. Appealing to motivations that are more personal is sure to work no matter what is fashionable. Sympathetic mid-income households. While most Americans consider themselves middle class, one real mark of it might be the willingness to spend a few extra dimes on the eco-friendly alternatives to the products and services they already purchase instead of always getting the cheapest thing on the shelf. Such folks will appreciate the personal touch, as it's what differentiates you from the nearest chain store with cheaply made imported goods. You have quality with a conscience to offer. However, they're not wealthy and will be on the lookout for value. If there isn't any way to keep your prices down to what is normally charged for such things, be sure and let your customers know why the raw materials cost so much. If your product or service is that good and your reasons make sense, they just might buy as a treat anyhow. Things that help people save money on utilities are also very popular. Such households tend to have at least one member with a bachelor's degree. Appeals to health and safety are also very effective for this segment. Often with a child or two in the house, these folks have been feeling taken for granted in the traditional marketplace. Moreover, they like to differentiate themselves from the lower middle class that typically hangs on to middle class status by going into debt. Let them know you care by tailoring and delivering the service they deserve. Youth. Those who've grown up in a world where there has always been an environmental movement are keenly aware of such issues. While they may not have enough time to get all the facts or a nuanced view of the world, they are ready to try anything and can be very passionate about what they believe in. Your personal touch and efforts at education can turn this segment of the market into lifelong customers. Often the first time young people really begin making green purchases for themselves is during college. As such, this demographic very often is at least on their way to a bachelor's degree, often with an impressive debt load as a result. They tend to be childless and will often have plenty of free time to get involved in community events as long as they're fun. Appeals to health and safety are not always very useful with the under 30 crowd since they are not entirely convinced of their own mortality anyhow. This fickle audience tends to have a bit more disposable income than others. Also, they not only accept but crave new and innovative things. Not afraid of doing a little work, do-it-yourself, DIY, and crafty products appeal, as do upcycled items. Not prone to their own nostalgia yet. This demographic is prone to latching on to your old nostalgia that you've updated. Customers you're sure to lose no matter what. There are always going to be some who have an aversion to all things even a little green. These people consider the idea of conserving anything to be an affront on their way of life. Such closely held beliefs are, by definition, not based on rational argument. There's little you can do to change it. While you can go out of your way to use emotional appeals to the national security aspects of oil independence and the like, you have to accept you're going to lose some people. It's sad, but wish them well, and maybe they'll come back someday when they realize how well you've treated them compared to your competition. Media professionals likely to review your business. There is rarely anything quite as sweet to a business owner as free publicity. You might be surprised how many people are interested in supporting your business by mentioning it in their ads. Every time you do something new with your business, you're an ideal candidate to be profiled. It is likely that there are journalists that specialize in covering sustainability issues. They may work for the Big City Daily, your local monthly neighborhood newsletter, or anything in between. As such, they are likely already educated on the issues of sustainability. Instead of educating them on why your business is doing worthwhile things, they'll want specific answers as to the exact nature of your commitment. The interview with journalists who are not specifically sustainability contributors may include a bit more of an educational background, but you might want to have some facts and figures handy, the sort your interviewer can verify later. A good journalist won't just take your word for it, especially if you make unusual claims about the nature of conservation or your contribution to it. Of course, journalists of all stripes are hurried individuals who don't have all day to go about looking for stories. Learning how to write a press release that will catch someone's interest is fundamental. Don't be shy about sending such releases around. Just be honest. You can expect some bad press if you waste someone's time. They are going to want an angle. Be sure to give them one appropriate to their readership. If you're not sure who reads their publication, just ask. They certainly know. Rebranding your products or services. You've gone to all the work of creating a whole new company with a fresh focus. Your brand should reflect that too. You already know that even if you don't have a physical product, you still have a brand. Even people are brands if they're in the public view. Whether it would benefit you to actually change the name of your company depends upon how you choose to rebrand. If you're just starting out, your brand image is just as important, but you don't have to worry about changing the letterhead. You have perhaps a fraction of a second to get a potential customer's attention. Now that you know whom your product is likely to appeal to and where your marketing focus will be best spent, it's time to consider how that translates into the look and feel of what you have to deliver. Be advised, in the U.S. there are Federal Trade Commission, FTC, statutes that regulate the sort of claims you can make for certain words used in advertising. For instance, something called a reusable container that will break the next time someone attempts to reuse it is not allowed unless everyone knows it could break soon, such as a paper bag. Many more exciting examples are found in the Useful Links section below. Maintaining ecological optimism and upbeat sustainability. If there is one steadfast rule about marketing, it is that making people feel bad about something won't make them buy. If you paint a bleak picture of the future, no one is going to want to part with their hard-earned money. They might need it if things will be as bad as you say. It's easy to be down in the mouth about ecology sometimes. Trash and concrete and clouds of pollution seem to be everywhere. It can be downright depressing if this is an issue you truly care about, and obviously you do. But don't let that creep into your marketing. People want to know what they can do about it. If you choose to make the ecologically friendly nature of your business the main selling point you promote, sell it as an opportunity. Not only are you selling a good product, but you're allowing busy people the chance to do the right thing by spending money they were going to spend anyhow. Your product or service is there to help. Usually the sustainable angle rests on concrete things you can say about your product. Changing the color of your packaging isn't enough. Saying that your company is sustainable isn't enough. Your customers should be able to tell in a glance exactly what you're doing about it with each and every purchase. Statements that pertain to the source of materials are the most common. Another might refer to some sort of certification, such as LEED certified architects or salmon safe wines. If your product's green nature is obvious, such as with bicycles or building material salvage, you'll need to have another angle that makes it especially green, such as bicycles made especially for commuters or that the salvage materials are post-consumer waste. Industries well known for their use of often toxic chemicals can benefit greatly from offering natural alternatives. In the case of some services, such as dentists, there may be certain practices, such as mercury fillings, that people may be seeking alternatives to. Many people are now leery of oven cleaners, carpet shampooers, dry cleaners, and other miracles of the modern age. While there's a built-in market of people who want safer alternatives, you'll definitely want to make sure your copy makes it known that your product or services are eco-effective, too. If you have a large company, be forewarned. Unless your ideal market is among the true greens, you might do better to focus your marketing strategy on another aspect of your product to gain greater market share. Ease of use. If there's one thing people like, it's to do good deeds that are easy. Often people avoid good ideas because they seem like too much of a fuss. If your product makes anything at all easier, by all means, mention it. Sometimes people regard the toxic fumes and byproducts of your competition's product or service as a mere hassle. While it might seem a health and safety issue to you, don't overlook the convenience of being able to let your pets and kids play on the lawn after an organic landscape maintenance company has tended to it. It's a lot easier to use products that don't require you suit up before using it. If your competition imposes such indignities upon people because they're a health hazard, you've got a major marketing point. Even if you're entering a market where there already is eco-friendly competition, if you've found a way to make your version of the product or service easier or more convenient to use, that could be what sets you apart. Perhaps you're the only place in town that delivers. Maybe your service doesn't require follow-up visits. Maybe you can do in 1 hour what takes the others 3. Anything that removes bother and irritation from people's lives is marketable. Saving money. There are quite a few products out there that not only save chemicals or energy, but also save a great deal of money for the purchaser in the long run. Spend a few dollars on the ethylene eaters and save several dollars in produce that didn't go bad in your crisper drawer. There are tons of products and services that help consumers conserve the all-important resource of money. They tend to fit into a few distinct categories. Durable items don't have to be replaced as often. Efficient items save the cost of energy. Innovative items find better ways of doing things that replace expenses. High-quality items may be more concentrated. Recyclable items have no or low disposal costs. Safe items save you the pain and lost wages of future illness. Even if the money-saving connections are obvious to you, it never hurts to note them on your adverts or packaging. This approach appeals to everyone except some of the very wealthy who like to spend money on the best. Quality. Just because your product or service treads lightly upon the earth doesn't mean anyone will want to buy it if it's inferior. Quite the opposite. You know that your product was designed to be better than the competition's. Be sure and tell people about it. This will be the focus of many campaigns since high-quality items and services appeal to a very large audience. For example, it is a major selling point of many so-called boutique items. In fact, you might even consider the use of the term a more acceptable marketing euphemism for boutique, since it seems to connote something too fancy for those on a budget. Labor relations. People like supporting businesses that treat their employees well. The most successful companies provide stellar customer service when employees stay in their jobs for a while. Those who feel they're working for people who give a damn about them will be more loyal and feel better about staying on. Just about everyone with a job would like such an employer. Many know that by supporting companies that are good to work for, more people will get to have decent jobs. Conversely, successful movements to boycott companies that exploit workers in their home country and abroad have caused major corporate policy changes where change seemed unlikely. Showing a team photo of your grimacing minions won't convince anyone. If you're going to talk about your employees, you need to be talking about what you're doing for them. Better yet, encourage field trips for your employees to interact with the public in the name of work. You'll be banking on their enthusiasm, but if you've really tried to create a good environment to work in, they'll make a good impression and they'll have a change of pace. Note, don't force anyone who swears they're bad with the public. They'll be right either way. It can be a bit abstract to market indirect business practices, so your excellent labor practices should be considered a secondary marketing effort, but an essential operational one.